Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last little while, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are pretty solid all round. They do a wide variety of different things, they're not scared to be a wee bit experimental, and I guess you could probably call them a little bit of a up-and-coming brewery in Hong Kong still as well, but pretty well established at the same time. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one that I've had from them many times before. It's one of my kind of go-to beers when it comes to this brewery, I guess you could say as well, and it's also a favourite of a good friend of mine who works at this brewery too. So yeah, definitely cool to be able to do a proper sit-down review of this beer for you here on the channel. So hopefully this one's as good as I remember. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review for you guys, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to the kind of northeastern part of Kowloon to an area called Sampo Kong, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Deadman Brewery. So this particular beer is called 5,000 Years. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and this one is a Pilsner. So yeah, this one is a favourite of my friend Ash, who is the main man behind the sales and marketing of Deadman Brewery, and he and I have drunk quite a few of these together on the Friday night bars at Deadman Brewery. So yeah, this one is a beer that I do know probably a bit too well, in all honesty, but yeah, definitely cool to be able to put this one out there because it is one of their core range beers, and it is one that is quite accessible here in Hong Kong as well, and definitely worth trying if you get the chance. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Deadman Brewery before, and we will add more to that list in the very near future because I've got quite a few cans from these guys to work my way through. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things from the territory, and you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Deadman Brewery once again then. So, as I mentioned to you already, Deadman Brewery are based in Sampo Kong in Kowloon here in Hong Kong, and the brewery was founded back in 2018 by Jerry Ko and Sherman Chan. So both of these guys are Hong Kongers, and they were old school friends that actually used to play a lot of basketball together very often. But Sherman had a sports bar in Kwun Tong called The Stadium, and he discovered craft beer through the suppliers that were giving him his produce. But he was looking for some more interesting beers to serve in the bar, and so he started to look a little bit more down the craft beer route. But Jerry was apparently exposed to craft beer while in Canada studying veterinary science, and this prompted him to start home brewing, which he was doing on his rooftop. But he then bumped into an old friend on a tour of Lion Brewery who was interested in starting his own brewery, and things just went from there. And that friend was, of course, Sherman. So the name Deadman was chosen because they felt that everyone in Hong Kong is basically a dead man walking, working their arses off. But this basically plays into the brewery's skull symbol and zombie artwork, which you can see here. I'll show you a little bit more close up later on. But the first beer they produced is the Dirty Paleo, and this was released back in 2018. So the current head brewer of Deadman Brewery is Jason Lee, and he apparently is quite well sought after these days. But Jason studied chemical engineering at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and apparently during this course he took a trip to a brewery in mainland China, and he was inspired by this to become a brewer. So when he got home, he googled beer in Hong Kong, and Moonzen appeared, and so he then joined them as a brewing intern in the summer of 2017. But later he went on to work for Young Master, who, as as we know, are the biggest by volume craft brewery in Hong Kong, and he started on the packaging line there and worked his way up to senior brewer. But he also started a brand called OCBD Beer with his friend in 2020. This friend was Chung Ka Ming, sorry. But then he joined Deadman as their head brewer in July of 2020 as well. So he had these two beer brands going on at the one time. But Deadman Brewery operate a 500 litre Chinese brew kit, and currently the brewery is producing around 6,000 litres of beer per month, which translates to just over 70,000 litres of beer per year. So the beers were originally released in bottles, but they switched to cans in 2020 after they bought an American canning line, and apparently they're planning to open up their own bar at some stage in the near future as well. But over the years they've continued to develop new recipes and expand the brewery's fermentation capacity and build up their sales, and the main man behind that, of course, is Ashwan Prabhu, who is known locally as Deadman Ash, and it was him that I was talking about earlier who loves this beer, as do I. But yeah, the Deadman artwork is apparently the brainchild of Jerry, and then the brewery workers have a sort of brainstorming session with a few beers to decide the names of the new beers that they produce, and then the final sketch that Jerry makes is passed on to a professional ghost artist who adds the colour and finishes off the idea before the beer is released. So yeah, very distinctive artwork from Deadman, of course, as a result of that. But as of July 2024, they've produced around 60 different beers according to Untappd. And yeah, like I say, they're pretty damn solid all round, actually, these guys. They've been experimenting a little bit more with sour beers recently. You'll see a few of these appear on the channel over the next wee while. And yeah, they've always done some nice kind of drinkable IPAs and pale ales and stuff like this. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Deadman Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just like to have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. There you can see the camel and the zombie kind of fighting over the beer straw, I guess. But yeah, I have to say I do really like the artwork on this one, and 5,000 years is a little bit of a go-to beer for me when it comes to this brewery. You can see the standard blue top on the can there, and it tells you just a little bit about the beer on the side here. So it says, refresh yourself with this thirst-quenching Pilsner. Make sure it's ice cold before enjoying under the scorching sun. Bring a dozen to have with your chunky fries, and make sure you share it with your friends. So yeah, it's pretty nice. But yeah, 330ml can, this one. In fact, this is probably the only complaint I can have about this beer. It really should be a half-litre can for this one. But yeah, I think that would be quite difficult for them to configure the machine and things like that. But yeah, this one, 5.2% Pilsner. I know this one is made with German malts and things, but yeah, let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. So for those of you who don't know, the Pilsner is a lager beer. It ferments at lower temperatures using bottom fermenting yeast, and that's usually fermenting between sort of 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, whereas ales will ferment using top fermenting yeasts at like 15, 16 degrees Celsius, something like that. But yeah, the Pilsner as a style originated in the now Czech city of Pilsen. At the time it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The style was actually developed by a Bavarian brewer who moved there, and that beer is of course Pilsner Urquell Pojenski Prastroy, but he was kicked out of the town like 2 years later or something because he was a bit of an arsehole from what I remember. But yeah, so yeah, anyway, you can see this beer poured before the head disappears. It poured with about a finger of a frothy white head there, although I noticed that the head turned a little bit kind of soapy and things. If you look at that, you can see the kind of smaller bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, and a few bigger ones just kind of going further up. But yeah, looks pretty nice, this one. Beer does have a good little bit of natural haze to it, which you do want from a Pilsner, I would say. One of the key differences, we can talk about Czech Pilsens and German Pilsners. For me, the main difference would be that the Czech hops are a little bit more kind of spicy in their floral character, actually, and the Czech malts are a bit more I would say they're a little bit smoother actually and a little bit more bready, but you do tend to get more unfiltered Pilsners and lager beers generally in the Czech Republic too, so they always have a bit more of this kind of bready, creamy sort of character to them. The German takes on these styles are often just a little bit cleaner. I think they like to use filtering a bit more in Germany, and of course the German hops, the Hallertau, the Tettnangs, are a bit smoother and a little bit brighter, I would say, in comparison to the Czech Žatec or Sats as it's known. So yeah, these are the differences there, and I think the German malts are just a little touch drier and maybe a little bit more oily in a sense as well. So yeah, that's kind of rundown of difference, but I know this one is made with German ingredients primarily. But yeah, you can see the colour of this one is a lovely kind of rich golden straw colour. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. It just depends. You don't really have to care about that when it comes to Pilsners. Now, the thing with these beers, Pilsners, because they're fermented at the lower temperature, it takes a longer time for them to ferment, and usually, most of the time when you get the longer fermentation, you get a smoother taste and things like that. So a Pilsner and most lager beers are actually technically more difficult to make than the IPAs and the ales and things that are popular. So to make a good Pilsner, or a good lager of pretty much any description, is a sign of a good brewer, if you like. So yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. One or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. You can see the head is dissipated a little bit, and as I said earlier, this one does have a little bit of that natural haze to it. But all in all, the appearance of this one is pretty much what you would expect from the style. I've talked about the history of the style and the technicalities of it a little bit. So I think we can move on from the appearance and have a wee look at the aroma of this beer. I always get very excited about Pilsners and lagers. I really enjoy them. So let's have a look at this one. Yeah, aroma-wise, this beer is very, very nice. Comes across as very authentic, but you can, as I say, in comparison with the Czech and German ones, it definitely shows you more of that German character, as you'd expect. It gives you everything you'd want with this one. It gives you a little bit of breadiness, it gives you the crispness, the hoppiness, a little bit of fruitiness, anything that you would want in a Pilsner is present in this beer. So let's have a wee look at that aroma a bit more in depth and just describe it for you and break it down. So for me, the backbone of this beer is absolutely a little bit of that kind of fresh, I would say white bready bread crust in there. So you get a little bit of that fresh white bready bread crust out of it. There's a little bit of cracker in there. There's a little bit of woodiness. A little bit of cracker, a little bit of woodiness, of course. And then above that, you start to get the bready notes. So there's a little bit of like a sweet wholemeal brown bread to this beer, I would say, which I do really quite like. And then above that, you start to get a fluffier white bready character out of this one, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, for me, the bready character in this one actually comes across as kind of sweet in a sense. Yeah, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it, but you do get that distinctive German kind of crispness. I've always found that the German malts are very kind of crisp in a way, and you can smell that little bit of kind of, is bitiness the right way to describe it? You can definitely smell that little bit of Pilsner malty dryness in the back of the nose with this one. So yeah, you've got a bit of brown bread in there, you've got a little bit of white, mainly white bread I would say, there's just a little touch of brown bread. Then you've got the Pilsner malty dryness, you've got a good little bit of sweet malty character in there as well. And yeah, there's definitely a little touch of straight up caramel in this one. Good little bit of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit as well, I would add. And yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, it's interesting, this one. I think on the malty side, I don't know if there's really much more to say about it. That little bit of caramel, a little bit of biscuit, wholemeal brown bread, white bready character, and then some bread crust. I think that goes together really, really nicely. So yeah, that's it. Yeasty side of things is kind of what you'd expect. You get a little bit of that in the back of the nose. It's a mix of like cracker and white bread and stuff like this. But yeah, the green component of this beer then. So for me, the green component of this beer, it has a really nice it has a really nice little bit of earthiness to it, but not too much. You definitely get quite a nice bit of that big, quite pungent and bright floral aromaticity that you would expect of Hallertauer Tettnang. I'm not sure exactly what hop it is they use in this one actually. Maybe they're using one of the slightly higher alpha acid ones like Pearl or Hercules or something like that. But yeah, you've also got a good little bit of a kind of grassy, zesty character coming out of the beer as well. So the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So it's a thumbs up from me. On the fruity side, I would say that this beer is quite, yeah, I'd say that this beer is quite, it's got a good little bit of, I would say, kind of grassiness, like a little bit of that lemon limey character, of course, that you get from the grassy esters, but at the same time, it's got a little bit of an oily pear to it, maybe a little bit of sultana and gooseberry, kind of things like this. These are all things that you expect to get out of this particular style of beer. But yeah, I think there's not too much else to say about the aroma of this one. I think it's pretty much as you would expect from the style, but that's what I look for with these beers. I want beers that are, you know, are close to what you would find in Germany or the Czech Republic. That's really what I want with this particular style. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the aroma. As I always say though, take a little bit of time to just enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into it. So yeah, let's taste this one and see what it's all about again. So this one is the 5,000 Years Pilsner, 5.2% from the wonderful Deadman Brewery in Sampokong here in Kowloon in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Big shout out to Ash, of course, because this is his favourite. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's pretty damn good actually. It's even better on tap as well, I would say that. Yeah, for me, the this one, it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit oilier than I remember it being, and it's good. It's interesting to see these little nuances with it, because obviously there is a bit of difference between the canning condition and the bottle condition, and the tap condition as well, of course, keg conditioning. So yeah, for me it's a little bit more oily than I remember it, but the last ones I had were all on tap, of course. So yeah, interesting stuff. So yeah, it gives you everything you want in this beer though. You've got a nice little bit of sweetness to it, you've got that bit of crispness, good bit of green component, and then a wee bit of an oily, fruity kind of character as well. So yeah, it's good. As I say, the thing with these beers, when you do reviews of Pilsners and they're only in like 330ml cans, that is dangerous, of course. But yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe the flavour for you a little bit more in depth. So, if you go to the middle third of your palate then, the backbone of the beer, you've got that nice kind of crisp, white bready bread crust in there. That's forming the backbone of your beer. As you move further forward on that, middle third of your palate, you will get a little touch of woodiness in there. So yeah, bit of bread crust, a little bit of woodiness in there. Then on top of that, you have this brown bready sort of thing. You know, you get this layer of like almost crisp, but it's not sweet actually. It came across as kind of sweet in the aroma, but you get that layer of crisp brown bready character. And it's not too big, but I think into the aftertaste you get more bread crust out of this beer, and you also get a little bit of that kind of grainy crack. There's a bit of cracker in this one as well. Above the bread crust you've got a layer of like Jacob's cream cracker, but then yeah, wholemeal brown bread above that, quite crisp, and then you've got the white bready character in there as well. And the white bread has a little bit of dryness to it as well, which I quite like. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is quite nice in this one. Yeah, on top of the white bready layer, of course, you start to get the kind of Pilsner malty type character. So toward the back of that middle third of your palate. And remember that further forward on your palate, you're going to get the sweeter flavours. Further back, you're going to get the more dry and bitter flavours. So yeah, with this one, you start to get a little bit more of the, you get the Pilsner malty characters further back on your palate with this beer. So you can feel that kind of dry Pilsner malty crispness further back, and then as you move further forward, it kind of mellows out and smoothens out a wee bit. But on top of that, you get a kind of there's a very slight toasty, caramelly layer there, and that is of course the sweeter side of the Pilsner malt. But in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a little sort of oily circle there. So at the dead centre of that, you have a little bit of a kind of straight up sweet caramel and things. You've got a little bit of, as you move further out from that, you get a wee bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. And as you move out from that, you start to get a little bit more of a McVitie's digestive biscuity kind of character out of it too. So yeah, the way that middle third of your palate goes together in this one, I think is very, very nice. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah. I don't think we need to say anything much more about that middle third of the palate then. So let's go to the back third of the palate. Your border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top of that, and then a wee bit of the kind of Pilsner malty crispness sitting on top of that. But yeah, the base of that back third of the palate there is quite nice. Again, you get a more kind of crisp and dry bread crusty character. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, you get that bread crusty layer in there. You get a little bit of the cracker in it as well, and then you also get the kind of brown bready character sitting above that. So you can feel that brown bready layer is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. The white bready character above that again is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy. And then yeah, you can feel the kind of Pilsner malty crispness, and it's actually quite dry. It's got a little bit of bite to it, and that creeps over the top of the malty side on that back third of the palate. Then you've got all the yeasty character in there as well. So yeah. So yeah, for me, the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting because it's actually quite dry and has a good little bit of crispness and stuff to it. But yeah, you can feel in the middle of the yeasty character, it's a bit more kind of brown bready, and as you move out around the edge of it, it's a little bit more white bready. And then yeah, around the very edge of it, it's a little bit more kind of bread crusty and things like that as well. So yeah, you've got this kind of drier bread crusty character in there, the white bready character, then the kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of things. But yeah, the way that all pieces together, I think, is really nice, and you can definitely get you can definitely feel the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that pieces together, I think, is quite nice. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of you do have a good little bit of earthiness out of this one there, and as you move further forward, it gets quite floral and spicy quite early, so that makes me wonder if they are using a slightly higher alpha acid German hop in this one. As I say, Hercules and Pearl would be the options there. But yeah, it does get quite floral and spicy along the sides of the palate. They're a little bit dank almost, and as you reach the front corners of your palate, it's got that more floral spicy character to it, and round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. But it's quite a wet grassiness that you get out of this particular beer as well. So yeah, I think that covers the green component. On to the if we go on to the hoppy side of things, the front third of your palate, brain is not working in these videos, guys, anymore. Getting old. But yeah, the front third of your palate then, the border region between front third and middle third of the palate, again, you get that little bit of bready build up, brown bread in the base, white bread on top, and a wee bit of the Pilsner malty crispness. But the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the bit of bread crust underneath, you've got the kind of Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things. So for me, fruity side of the beer is kind of what you'd expect from the style. If you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you've got more of a, you do get a little bit of a kind of oily pear, a little bit of sultana as you come further forward, you know, white green grapes. So oily pear, sultana, white green grapes, and then yeah, you get the beyond that, as you move further forward, you get a little bit of a more kind of, there's a bit of fresh green apple in there, but yeah, it's more of that kind of lemony limey and slightly gooseberry note that you'll get mixing in with all the grassy esters in the beer. But yeah, all in all, I think it's quite nice, this one. It's an interesting Pilsner, and I've certainly enjoyed it, but definitely more, flavour profile wise, definitely more of a German Pilsner. It doesn't quite have the kind of creaminess of the Czech ones. It is more like clean and slightly oily, I would say. So a bit more bitter actually as well. It feels like it's got maybe 40-ish IBUs in it or something like that rather than 30, but that's another thing. So yeah, just to round off then the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. This one, I mean, it's definitely light-bodied. Carbonation has a good little bit of crispness into it, and that's what you want from a Pilsner because it helps promote the kind of bitterness and the crispness of the malt, so I like that. And yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So it's got a little bit of an oily slickness to it, this beer as well, which is quite interesting. But the base of the beer underneath, yeah, you've got that little bit of bread, that little bit of crusty bread crusty character in there, the nice bread, little bit of sweetness on top, and then yeah, you've got a little bit of an oily character as well. So yeah, the way that all of this beer, the way that everything in this beer goes together, I think is really nice. It's a good Pilsner. I would say it's a bit better on tap than it is in the can, right enough. And something I do hope they do in the future when they've got the ability to do it is to put this into like a half litre or a 440 can, because yeah, 330 milliliter Pilsners is it's a bit difficult actually, but yeah, I think that's one of the things, and I think in Hong Kong they do actually like smaller cans as well, so it just depends on the market. But yeah, really interesting beer, this one that I've had many times, and certainly cool to be able to do a proper sit down review of this one for you. So definitely a German Pilsner. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Deadman Brewery as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point very soon, because I've got quite a few cans to work my way through from them. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Deadman's social media, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.